Hello, my name is Rob Simpson and welcome to Directors Uncut. If this is your first episode, we put filmmakers from all corners of the globe onto a huge list that covers everything from René Laloux to Police Story 2. Hey, it rhymes. Then we turn it into a lottery of directors by using a random number generator to pick a name out of the hat. Whatever name comes out, I am joined by a rotating cast of guest hosts to discuss them and their work through 2 films. Today, I have been joined by Graham. Hello there.
Hello.
And Ben. Hello.
Eventually, I'm here. I made it. Woo!
Yes.
Listeners, it's been a week like that.
Yeah, it's been a week.
Yeah. So, how are you anyway, both of you?
I'm fine. I've had a tweet that went viral, and I'd forgotten what a weirdly stressful experience that is. I hate Twitter, but, you know, self-promotion is as self-promotion does. Yeah, that's been my week.
You kind of buried the lead there. What went viral?
I made a tweet in defence of the chef Jack Monroe, who was being attacked for, I think, having a mother. Anti-Jack Monroe Twitter is just a whole thing.
Twitter.
It's almost like it's just a giant machine to make everyone into an arsehole.
No, well, you say that, actually, just to interject. I actually had a reasoned and pleasant argument with somebody earlier this week on Twitter. Someone who was being a bit sanctimonious, and I kind of went like, all right, I'll bite. What's all this about? And we had a discussion over several tweets, and I think I corrected him. Because that's what I'm like.
Was it an AI? Because that doesn't sound like...
No, because it had one of those things saying, are you a robot? And it said no.
So, the directors that we go on to do this week...
Rob, how are you?
Sorry.
I noticed you kind of push on to all of us. How are you, my friend? How's your week been? How's it been going?
Cooking alive in a room with no ventilation, so... The window is way over there, and all the air with it.
Yeah, we're not going to get that slight through all of it that usually goes on at this time of year on most podcasts.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of birds out my back, so if it happened to you, you just have lots of, like, sort of nice ambience of birds doing the business.
Good. Yeah. I've often wanted to do an outdoor podcast, but I think where I live, that outdoor ambience would be less soothing bird song and more screeching kids and police sirens.
I was going to say, I'm just outside Liverpool, guaranteed. When you said there's birds outside, I got a completely different mental picture. Like, all right. I'm bleeding out. All right. If my wife hears this, I'm in serious. She's the scouser of this family, and seriously, I'm in trouble if she ever listens to this. But she probably won't, because it's like, oh, it's one of your boring Japanese movies, isn't it? It's like, yeah, sorry.
Well, you've given me a perfect segue there. Yes, it is a Japanese movie, and it's one of the big ones, at least for myself. It's Takeshi Kitano or Beat Kitano.
Oh, absolutely.
So, there's going to be 2 wildly different answers here. So, Graham. What do you know about him? Where'd you find out about him?
I mean, I think I probably first became aware of Kitano as an actor probably through Battle Royale, which is one of his iconic performances. I think in terms of things he hasn't directed, I most associate his acting with that and Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, where, of course, he says the title. Fine role for any actor. In terms of his directorial career, I've actually seen a few, including one of the ones we'll do today, but I feel like I haven't got a proper grip on him, if only because there's so much diverse stuff in his back catalogue. I mean, he's probably the only major art house director where you can say, I haven't seen much of his game show hosting work.
Yes.
Roberto Rossellini hosted very few game shows as far as I'm aware, but not Kitano. He didn't neglect that side of things.
Yeah, it's his acting debut was, I think, in 1969 in Go-Go Second Time Virgin with was it Koji Wakamatsu who did that?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, which sounds cool in Japanese, but in English it just sounds like a 4-year-old made that title up, doesn't it? It's just...
Yeah, it sounds kind of like all those Seijun Suzuki films, doesn't it? It's sort of like, hang on a minute. If you just put loads of words together randomly,
Yes.
I think you have.
So, Ben, same question to you. When did you first become aware of the guy?
I was kind of semi-aware of him kind of in the mid to late 90s. I mean, I remember Hana Bi coming out, and that was getting quite a lot of press, but it took like a year or two for it to come over here. So it was 99 before it actually, like, anything was even being heard about it. And obviously then, so like with the success of Battle Royale, you start to see a lot more coming out. But I was kind of reading about him, I was aware about him. I know I think it was Channel 4 back in the day, did like Boiling Point and Sonatine as well on late night, because I was that kid who'd stay up all night watching TV when he should have been in bed or doing homework. But it's led me here today.
Oh, come on, everybody was that kid. Everybody was that kid, surely.
Everybody with a movie podcast was that kid.
Well, yes. So for me, I don't know really. It might have been Battle Royale, but around the same sort of time.
And I think,
same sort of time, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that is a vast majority of people kind of jumped in with Battle Royale. And it was a great jumping off point as well, because he is amazing in that film. He is absolutely fantastic. He walks that line between teacher and just complete insanity, and it's such a nuanced performance as well. Sorry, I kind of totally.
Well, no, it's one of those questions. I was just thinking that it's like the chicken and the egg, isn't it? I mean, it's around the same time that a lot of Japanese stuff was coming out, so I wasn't sure whether it was Battle Royale first or whether it was one of his directed stuff. It's all kind of,
yeah. I think it might have been either Artificial Eye or there was another company who released films. It wasn't Tartan, no. It was another one. I can see their covers. But they released like Nagasura films as well. So like, because I know they released Taboo, which he's also in as well, or Gohato, which he's in as well, which is about gay samurai, which is a great film, absolutely great film. And it wasn't Artificial Eye. Who was it? But it was a company like that, one of the smaller ones. And they were releasing a few of them, because I know they released Hana Bi as well over here, and that was the version I had for years.
I think it was was it a box set? It was a box set of 3.
Well, the one that now...
I think it was Violent Cop.
Yes.
Sonatine, maybe Boiling Point, the one which BFI just reissued, but as a Blu-ray.
That was a company called... Well, it was a line called Tokyo Bullet, and I've still got those DVDs as well. I'm really getting fed up of having to rebuy my collection on Blu-ray. It's getting really annoying. But it is kind of one of those situations... it's one of those things where, as I say, those 3 came out as a box set. Releasing things like Angel 1 and 2, The Score 1 and 2, all those films, if it is kind of semi-violent or trying to take on Hong Kong cinema, they were going to release it, because that was the big thing. When you talked about Asian cinema at the time, it was all Chow Yun-fat, it was all Ringo Lam, it was all those kind of people as well coming into it. But yeah, no, they were available, but they were very much seen as really niche.
Yeah.
It was Battle Royale that opened the floodgates. That and the onset of Kill Bill a few years later. That really kind of opened the floodgates for a lot of films to get released, like Lady Snowblood and things like that.
I'd agree with that, yeah. So this is part 1 of 2. Well, yeah, part 1 of 2. The first part, we have Hana Bi, A.K.A. Fireworks, and Kikujiro. Just for clarity's sake, in part 2, we're going to be doing Violent Cop and Zatoichi.
それってパトランプだろ。なもんどうすんだ。銀行ごとやると思ってよ。
So 1997's Hana Bi. This is a peculiar beast. It's quite non-linear, but on the face of it, once you cut back how it's sort of presented, it's a simple story of a police officer who's dealing with his wife who has, I think it's an unnamed illness, but it is terminal. And he's just struggling with depression and debt to the Yakuza. Horrible incident when he's supposed to go and visit his wife, which results in his partner shot, played by Renosugi. He ends up wheelchair bound, and some bad stuff happens, and he ends up sort of between police and Yakuza, and he makes some bad decisions. It's kind of a very vague plot, isn't it, really?
Yes, definitely.
Because I feel like I can just say and then, and that does sound like I'm doing it a disservice, but I think it kind of works with how it's played out.
He's not a big plot guy in general, Kitano, isn't he? I mean, the plots of his films generally work, but it's the atmosphere and the staging and the pacing that seems to detain him more, as far as I can see.
But this was also like one of the first signs of him really softening up following his moped accident. Because I know that happened in 1994, and he's kind of later on gone to admit that was a subconscious suicide attempt. You know, but something kind. Yeah, no, right. It's kind of.
Wow, really?
He's paralyzed like most of his face. You can see actually before and after how much he is actually. I don't want to say deformed, but you know how much he does struggle with the facial, with the walking. He's got a very particular walk now, much more like a John Wayne kind of thing. But yeah,
he like a twitchy eye, hasn't he? If that's his tell of his injuries.
Yeah. Absolutely. This was kind of like one of those. I think he didn't getting any between the accident and this, but you can really see between those films he was very much having a softening kind of that, because this one, whilst it is about a Yakuza, yes, it is about a cop fallen from grace, and it kind of taps into that whole angel thing, which he has very much later in his career. It's definitely showing a softer side. It's, yes, okay, he's going to rob a bank, but he's doing it for the right reasons. He's quit his job for the right reasons. And that is to support his wife, to be there for his wife, who pulls one of the best Silent Bob impressions throughout this film. It's great, just kind of coming through. I mean, spoiler, she does talk, but it's only right at the end, and it's sort of like, oh, I see what you did there. It's great. Silent Bob in it. Love it.
Oh, well, there you go. There's a good segue again there. You're a segue machine today on caffeine.
Yes, I am the segue.
But yeah, Kitano doesn't talk for, I'd say, the first 50 minutes. He just grunts, basically, doesn't he?
For me, this is, like, for all it's aesthetically a very strong film, I think out of the Kitanos I've seen, it's the one that most gets to the heart of his screen persona, which is this very laconic, very cool, but also kind of vulnerable thing. I mean, I didn't realise this was so soon after the motorcycle accident, but I was aware of that, and I think those sort of scars on his face, that involuntary twitch he had, give him a more interesting kind of persona. You look at that face and you think, wow, there's a guy who's seen some things, which is exactly what he needs to be for a lot of roles like this.
Yeah, it's a curious thing, because you can have many movies of, I mean, the stereotype of French movies, isn't it? It's sort of attractive French man staring off into the middle distance.
Yeah.
It's the stereotype. But I don't know how Kitano does it, because he is a comedian. His comedy style was sort of like feed line, gag line, heavily based around puns. It's not like an American or English style of comedy or Australian. But his mannerisms is so beautifully put forward in this movie. Like you say, the character is there. You understand, even though he's not saying anything, he's saying everything.
It is, but then again, I mean, the comedy background that he comes from, I mean, look at all the great comics who've made great actors over the years, and it is kind of really taps in. If you can pull off comedy, you can pull off drama in a heartbeat, and he's got that beautiful, because comedy and tragedy work so close together, and he carries it so beautifully in this. The circumstance he finds himself is absolutely tragic, and yet, for instance, like the conversations he has with the junkyard owner, they're funny, they're hilarious. You know, you're kind of sitting there going with a wry smile on your face, going, you know what, I'd hope he gets away with this.
I mean, that junkyard dealer, I could watch a movie of him, honestly. He's just the angriest boy.
Well, Tetsuya Watanabe, I mean, his IMDb list reads like a Japanese film. I mean, you kind of look what he's been through. I mean, he's still working today. Recently, he was in the Sion Sono film. Actually, can we still talk about him? Are we allowed to? Has he been cancelled?
He should have been cancelled, but Japan just doesn't seem to care.
No, he really does not. Really does not. I mean, most recently, he was in Prisoners of the Ghostland with Nicolas Cage, the Sion Sono film. He was in Cold Fish, another Sion Sono film. He's been in Gamera. He was in Memories of Matsuko. So he really, that guy, even though he does very little in this film, Beat Takeshi has this thing about bringing in constant actors. You look at all his films, and it's the same people coming up again and again. A lot like Satoshi Miike, which I know we spoke about recently. It is the same people, the same cast of characters. Like, for instance, actually, no, I'll leave this till we get onto Kikujiro. But there's an actor in there that kind of comes up in there, and it's another one of the beat actors as well. And you're kind of like, oh, right, okay.
Yeah. Just for the clarity there, he was part of the stage comedy troupe called The Two Beats. And that's why he was called Beat Kitano for a long time.
I just assumed he had like a sideline in 1950s jazz-inflected poetry, but yeah, I'm learning. That's good.
I won't put it past them. Also, again, you two were just segueing me all over the place, are you?
How the hell is that a seg? No,
like
go
an
on.
STD of segues.
Now.
Yeah. Art was the feeling I got, because there's a lot of pictures of art, like lingering shot and art, like one of the characters who becomes wheelchair bound, as he does a lot of art, and a lot of that is actually done by Takeshi Kitano, sorry.
Oh, is it? Is that another
He's an artist
string
as well,
to his books?
yeah.
I really liked those paintings. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's very self-effacing about it. The character who is supposed to have done it says, yeah, I'm not very good at art, I'm an amateur.
Yeah.
But no, come on, don't be so bashful. I think it's great art that he puts across on the screen and what he does in his own spare time.
Yeah, I'm fascinated with, the whole idea of film as the seventh art, as they used to call it, is that film is something that can bring together other art forms and synthesize them. It can include elements of drama, of music, of photography, all that goes into making a film, and I'm fascinated by films that expand that. Do you remember, did you get to the end, Rob or Ben? Did either of you see Alex Wheatle, the fourth of Steve McQueen's Small Axe films?
I'm not sure, actually.
There's a whole sequence of that which is where the story, one of the big story beats, is told through a poem being recited. And it reminded me very much of that. It's like you've dropped in this art object that somehow tells the story, but in a very different way to how a film normally tells a story, and I really enjoyed that.
Yes, I think we have to talk about how deceptively funny this is. Because on the face of it, this is a movie about a man suffering. I mean, at the time of his career, he was very... How do I put this? He had a bit of a crisis of confidence, really, because he'd gone through this horrible, almost life-ending thing, and he had no confidence. He had no momentum, and the fact that he pulls up this brilliant movie is one thing, but there's also a sense of humour there.
Yeah, and...
A very playful sense of
overall,
humour.
it just made me think that maybe every great action director or action star is a comedian at heart. Jackie Chan is the obvious example of this, but there's something to do with that sense of timing, that precision in timing and pacing that I think lends itself to comedy and action as well.
Yeah, no, and it's true, as you say. I mean, that it is all about timing, and especially within action, and the two lend themselves. I mean, you go back into even going back into sort of like the low budget Taiwanese wuxia movies in the 70s, like Joseph Kuo and oh god, what's his name? All the Kung Fu guys on Twitter will be going, don't you know anything?
I will not be able to jog your memory for some of this. I'm sorry.
He did loads of... you know what? It's gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was... It is, as I say, all of them have an element of comedy in them. All of them have that disparate ideas kind of... Lee So-nam, there you go. Knew it'd come to me. Lee So-nam is the director I was thinking of. He's brilliant, honestly. Hot and Cold Vicious, fantastic films. But it's... they do have these disparate ideas, and a lot of them as well. It kind of comes in. It's not just action. It's kind of entering elements of dance. It's entering elements of art, and it's kind of this cacophony of ideas all coming through. But yeah, that sense of humor he's got shines through every time, and it can be, as I say, it can break up those dour moments where you've got long shots of him sitting with his wife, and it's just there, and they've just had the worst news possible. And it's just them sitting there, not even at each other, not even close, not even comforting each other, just kind of looking in the middle distance, trying to process what they've just been told. And then just a couple of moments later, you'd have a comedy beat right after that. And it's sort of like, usually that wouldn't work. Usually that would be, oh, hang on, that kind of feels a little bit bad taste. But here it works because you've got so many disparate ideas going on at the same time. It's a rare form of genius.
Yeah. It's kind of cemented why I love this, really, because full clarity, I've not seen this in a long time, and for about the first 50 minutes, I was like, why did I love this so much? I mean, Kitano plays a horrible human being, doing some really nasty stuff, and then you get the time that he spends with his wife, and you think, oh, okay, that all makes perfect sense. There's sort of a beautiful moment after beautiful moment shared between the two. It's just incredibly tender and sweet-hearted, but also he's a horrible shit.
But this is it. It kind of taps into that complexity of people, whereas a lot of the people he played up until this point were very sort of like one-dimensional. They're kind of like they're thugs or they're comedian. Very much. But this is kind of like, well, look, people are complex. People are. You can be a shit, but you can still love your wife. And you can still want to be there for them. And it really, for me, and this is where he was getting a lot more personal and kind of exploring a lot of those elements of people, of humanity, and what it kind of takes and the complexities we have to go through. And can you do wrong to do right? And it really, and this one, as I say, captures it, especially when those violent moments come over, because they can come out in a flash. But the people he's doing it to, you look at them as individuals, like the guy who gets and puts the chopstick in the eye of, and you're kind of like, well, he's a dick as well, so does Dick deserve the violence? Yeah.
Oh, God, I had to talk around this, but it's heartbreaking, isn't it? I don't think there's many movies that I've watched in a while that hit me with like a final scene quite as hard as this one did.
Yeah, I can go for that. I think that what separates, I think, good noir from just crime cinema is that noir always has that sense of deep fatalism, which I think is in this movie.
I've never thought of this as a noir, but you know what? You have something there. Okay, that took me by surprise. The violence, let's get into the violence. It's very abrupt. There's not a lot of it. I think it's sort of contained to a few scenes throughout. And the non-linearity sort of makes it a little bit confusing at times.
The non-linearity makes it more shocking, I think, because the flashbacks are spliced in very savagely in a way that maybe is a bit more like familiar now than it was back then. Maybe we've seen a few more people do that, but they are very surprising, and those flashbacks are where a lot of the film's violence is contained.
Yes, and there's a scene later on in the snow in a car as well, which...
I'm probably thinking about different scenes, but I'm like, reverse the car.
Yes.
It's just absolutely no nonsense, isn't it? I mean, it's been said so many times how the more shocking violence is the stuff which it doesn't present itself as sort of heightened or stylized, and he doesn't do that, but there's just no sort of ceremony about it. He'll just have a gun and there you go, he shot. Shot son.
Yeah.
And lots of people talk about that sort of abruptness of violence in a lot of movies, but I don't think many people truly capture it. There's a little bit too much of a showman in their violent acts, whereas acts means something very different after doing the John Waters episode. But,
Yes.
But it is kind of taps into a lot of that kind of Japanese aesthetic, especially around about this time. Because if you look at the sort of like the films of Toshiaki Toyoda and things like Porno Star and things like that, the violence is a very grim, very real kind of. I mean, he's very much more punk rock and nihilistic, whereas in this, even though despite the end, and I don't want to spoil it here, there is kind of a sense of hope. There is a sense of, I've been a bad person. I've done all these terrible things. But if I can give my wife a sense of normalcy at the end, give her the things that she's deserved, does that give me the redemption I deserve? And it's kind of but to do that and to fund that, he has to go and do this job for the Yakuza, and it's kind of like, so do two wrongs make right. I think I made this point earlier, so I'm repeating myself again. It's do two wrongs make a right kind of that. Yeah, no, and it plays it beautifully. But yeah, the violence, it is shocking, but it's supposed to be shocking. It's supposed to come out of nowhere because that's what violence does. It's like when he sat down with the Yakuza, he's surrounded by the enemy. That would be the one time you would think that, actually, don't try something, and he goes for it. And he goes for it. And it could because he doesn't care anymore, because the one person he actually loves more than anybody in the world is dying. So yeah, it is shocking, but it's as shocking as the situation he faces every day.
Yes. I mean, I've got to say, like, when his wife says thank you and sorry, that tore through me like tissue paper.
Yeah.
Whew. Rough stuff. But music, I'm not sure whether this is... He has, like, a long-standing relationship with Joe Hisaishi, I think. Yeah, he does here too. So what are your feelings on the music that is employed here?
Was it Joe Hisaishi? It's Mr. Studio Ghibli himself. I mean, you know, it's like, has the man created a bad soundtrack? Not as far as I'm aware. It's sort of like, I don't think it quite reaches the heights of some of his other works here, but it's still, that's like saying winning the Champions League 3 out of 4 years is a disappointment. It's like, no, because you still got to the semi-final in the other year. I think that's a pretty good season, you know. And as an Everton supporter, I would support any cup competition. You know, it's kind of like, so it's all about perspective. When you set such high standards, it doesn't quite reach the peak, but it's still excellent. You can still go back. And I mean, I've got this soundtrack. I've been listening to it for years, and it's beautiful. It really at sometimes though it does feel, especially with the violence and things like that, the soundtrack to this does feel at odds to what you're seeing on screen, because it is so beautiful. It's so transient in the sense that it kind of moves from place to place and kind of takes you on a different journey, and it's sort of like it tries to soothe the violence, and it's kind of like, no, this is pretty brutal that we're seeing over here. It's like, no, but listen to this beautiful music, kind of like what John Woo would do in things like Face Off and things like that. It's sort of like kind of counterbalance the violence that you're seeing with this beautiful piece of music, and it's sort of like, okay. But yeah, no, I love it. It's a great soundtrack to a great film. Oh, sorry, have I played my hand? Sorry.
No, that's fine. But Graham, first, have you got any sort of closing remarks on Fireworks, Hana Bi?
Just vibes, man. It's a whole film of that's a pleasing bummer. Like, I get what you're saying about it being a really dark, really emotional vibe, but there's also something about just the visuals and the pacing of it that's really pleasurable in a way that I can't quite describe. Gotta watch it, man.
Yeah, entirely. I think, Ben, you've played your hand, haven't you?
I have. I did. Something I kind of wrote here kind of puts it better than I can think of right now. Now, bearing in mind, I write most of my Letterboxd kind of reviews at 1 o'clock in the morning, right after I've seen a movie. So these are kind of like pure thoughts going onto page. With single frames that could be hung in a gallery and uncomfortable silences right before an explosion of violence, just like the titular Fireworks, Hana Bi is an absolute delight and a work of art from an artist still figuring things out following a life-changing event. And I am, for one, glad that he chose to share his art with the world, because it is beautiful.
I can't really remember when I last had any hope. And I certainly can't remember when anyone else did either. Because really, since women stopped being able to have babies, what's left to hope for?
The world was stunned today by the death of Diego Ricardo, the youngest person on the planet. The youngest person on Earth was 18 years, 4 months, 20 days, 16 hours, and 8 minutes old.
The ultimate mystery. Why are women infertile? Some say it's genetic experiments, pollution. Why do you think we can't make babies anymore?
Okay, so that brings us to the point of the show where we pick the next director. We have a new branch, which is Patreon exclusives with directors that have won 2 at a push movies that they ever did. And that's a spin-off show called One Shot and Done. So that is factored into this 463 mammoth directors.
What?
So, yes. And also we've allowed directors who've made 3 on, so I will have to watch an Ari Aster movie eventually, and I don't like that. I'm not a fan. I'll be upfront about it.
Has Ari Aster made 3 movies?
With his one this year, he will have, yes.
Yeah, his one, isn't it called something like Disappointment Boulevard, which I thought was a bit much. I'm not going to be disappointed by it. I expect it to be shit, and it will be shit.
Oh, me and you're going to have a disagreement there, man.
However, next director. is going to be director number 20.
Oh, right at the start. Okay, number 20 is... Oh, that's nice. Alfonso Cuarón.
Okay.
I think I'm on that one.
Smashing.
Alfonso Cuarón. So we've got Children of Men, Roma, Harry Potter and the...
Prisoner of Azkaban.
That's it, yes. Yep. Gravity, Y Tu Mama Tambien.
Oh, I remember that was like every teenage boy was in love with that movie. Yes. You know, if you've seen it, you'll understand why. But yeah, he's a good one, is Cuarón.
Yeah, I like his work very much. I feel like there is some Y Tu Mama Tambien stuff, I'm pretty sure. I know Y Tu Mama Tambien was his big international breakthrough, but I think he had made films in Mexico before that. So I don't know whether that might be worth looking into.
I mean, I can't speak for the people who are going to be on that, but I won't mind watching Gravity again, seeing if it holds up outside of the cinema. Because in the cinema, it's brilliant. But
I saw it in IMAX when I was... Wow. When I went to see that in the Glasgow IMAX, and I think I've got my name down for him, so I look forward to doing that. Children of Men I rewatched during lockdown, and it's still great. I absolutely love that movie.
Do you find it's becoming more and more like a documentary?
Pretty much.
It's got one of the great tracking shots of the past 20 years, though. It truly has.
When he goes into the cafe.
I can't remember what it is. It's like a fight at the end where it just...
Oh, right, okay.
A gunfire scenario, and he tracks the camera with him all along with Clive Owen, and it's great.
There's a lot of areas we could go with Cuarón. I don't think there's really... even the Harry Potter film, I will say, is to me, it's Harry Potter and the one that was good. You know, I think there's very little I'd object to doing. That
was when it kind of grew up. That was the third book. Gary Oldman comes in. The Whomping Willow looks more... I think it was in the second movie as well, but it looks more... It looks like Del Toro-ish is what I kind of think his style for that movie is. And I would have loved to have seen Del Toro make a type of Harry Potter. So I like Harry Potter and quite a big fan of them. I'd love to have seen Del Toro do it, but I think Prisoner of Azkaban's probably as close as you would get to that style. And Cuarón's told stories about that before, which are quite interesting. I've still never seen Roma, which is...
I love Roma.
I need to watch it. I like it. That was the last one he made. So.
Could be one we throw in there.
Excellent.
おじちゃん名前なんていうの？
菊次郎だよ、バカ野郎。
ちゃんと連れてってよ。変なとこ行かないでよ。7と9。
勝負出たなお前。7と9。バカ野郎。なんで9なのって言わねえんだよお前は。7って言ったろ。いいんじゃん。お前3万8000よ。この野郎。親頼むぞ。ちゃんとやれ。
おじさん。やっぱりダメだった。
一緒に遊びましょう。子供がかわいそうですよ。
ちょっと右。痛
え。だるまさんが転んだ。
So let's move to the second movie of this week's episode. Takeshi Kitano's 1999 movie, Kikujiro. Simple plot again. There's a young lad named Masao he's a sad sack. He's about the only actor in the world who could out-deadpan Takeshi Kitano.
Yes.
It's not a long list. He's a sad sack though, and Takeshi Kitano's wife says, take him out in the country, see where his mum's gone, because Masao was being looked after by his grandmother. So you take Masao, go and see how his mother's doing. And at first, he takes him to the races. Doesn't go particularly well. And after a little bit, I think it's 2 days at the races, he decides to take him to find his mum. On the way there, it's kind of Takeshi Kitano being an arse, really.
Yes.
And on the way back, it's just a very, very big effort to cheer the little lad up, and it becomes very silly and very fun.
Yes, no one on screen has gambled with as many children outside of Gene Hackman in the Royal Tenenbaums.
Yes. And this is a hugely different film, whereas before we're talking about a movie which is quite solemn, it's introspective and sad, so sad. Whereas Kikujiro, it's sad too, but it's also very fun and very silly because we are talking about a road trip movie about a weird guy who, for a lot of it, is just called Mister, just doing weird stuff with a child in tow.
Yes. Less dark than you've accidentally made it sound there, Rob.
It does dabble into that a little bit. There's a scene where every part is capped by an intertitle, and I think that episode's called The Scary Man, where I think it's best to just not really explain that because it gets quite dark.
And yet here I am laughing at it.
Yeah. So what are your two feelings on this one, on Kikujiro?
This was the one of the pair that we did today that I hadn't seen before. I've seen... I am aware that Kitano does a lot more than just Yakuza and police corruption stories. I have seen Dolls, I have seen Zatoichi, so this sort of more experimental side of him isn't totally alien to me. But it's still, I think, surprising how proficient and how freewheeling and how flat out weird it is. I mean, at one point there's a point of view shot from the perspective of wheel trim, which is not something that I've really seen in cinema before.
There's one in Hana Bi of a fly, isn't there?
There is. You know what? I was saying that
is.
was his David Fincher moment. It's all like, where can I stick this camera now? It's all like, I know. And it's kind of like, there you go.
Yeah, it's just lovely, isn't it? It's a lovely movie, this.
It is, yeah. There's something about gamblers as a film subject matter where it's like, in real life I find gambling a bit depressing and desperate, really, for various reasons. But in film, it's somewhere where you can have a lot of surprises, a big element of chance in the narrative, but within this kind of easygoing, formal structure. It always reminds me of like California Split, the Robert Altman film, which is just a gorgeous laid back kind of gamblers movie, which I can't imagine is anything like professional gambling in real life, but on screen it's that word again. It's the vibes.
Absolutely.
It's the vibes.
Well, this one though, it feels a lot, and I'm jumping in right now again because that's what I do. This one actually kind of felt like it had a lot more autobiographical to it, because the actual title Kikujiro is actually the name of Takeshi Kitano's father, who was a gambler who would often leave the family unable to pay rent or buy food. So actually that lost boy might have been him. It's kind of hard to tell, and this kind of what I'm saying, after that accident, he really did change. He got a lot more personal, a lot more self-exploration going on. And so that child being this lost soul, not just from his mother, but also from his friends who were going away on holiday, from everybody around him was just abandoning him. And he had to stay at home. And even his grandmother, who was doing her best to support him, but she had to go out and work long hours and say, right, you sit there, you do what you need to do. Whereas during school time, he had somewhere to go and somewhere to be. Now he didn't have purpose. Now he had nowhere to go and he was getting lost. And then all of a sudden, there's this one man. I'm sorry, Takeshi Kitano's introduction in this is just brilliant because it is just fantastic. His wife kind of nudging him and just turn around and saying, will you sort this out? And it always reminds me of that joke, is sort of like, my wife turned around to me and said, are you not listening to what I'm saying? And I say, that's a funny way of starting a conversation. You know? So,
yes. But before that, actually, before he appears there's that image of him in the picture book right at the start.
Sorry, I might have missed that one. That bit. Sorry.
Unless I missed something.
Everybody's kind of...
I'm fairly confident that I'd watched the right film.
You have, yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. No, but that picture book in the opening, I did jot down as a joke in my notes. It's Takeshi Kitano's Paddington 2. And then I watched the rest of the film and thought, oh, maybe it is. Maybe that's not a joke.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, honestly. It's kind of very episodic, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah. And that's part of the pleasure of road movies, I'd say.
Yeah. I mean, well, if you don't know Japan, it's absolutely monstrously big. I think there was somebody put on Twitter how big Tokyo is, and for UK fans, I think it went from the south coast to about midway up Yorkshire.
Yeah, I could believe that.
Just Tokyo, okay. So it's a hugely big place. So you get this sort of diversity of landscapes with this as a road trip movie. Every episode is very, very different sort of as a landscape, which is as a British person, we don't have it. Everywhere looks exactly the same. You could be in Liverpool, you could be in Glasgow, you could be in London, and all the streets look exactly the same as
No, I disagree. As somebody who originates from Wales, I've been in England for a while, and you don't have slow Araf on the roads.
I take it all back.
You don't have this dual language. It's sort of like, what's going on? What's going on?
Yeah, but it's still the same. Like, you get a real sense of scale and a place, and every episode is very, very different. We have a cultural festival. We have a very, very weird stay at a hotel, and a little bit. I mean, so many little great incidental jokes, like when they're trying to hail a car. It's like a little throwaway bit. Let's try to hail a car and they put like a pin in the middle of the road and it crashes and then goes down like a gully thing. Oh hell, better run. Like the landscape is different in so many things. At the end where they sort of camp for a few days at, I don't know what you'd describe that. It's just sort of a beck really, isn't it? It's like a little bit of water and a bit of land. But I think that's just the pleasure of these movies to me. They just move around so much.
Yeah.
And we've talked like about a bad road trip movie on this podcast before, and it's just nice to be reminded how good and sort of
this kind of hides it a little bit as well, because yes, whilst it is a road movie and whilst they do go in search of the mother character in this, if you consider it, she's actually found quite fast in usually, because that would be the resolution of your road movie, but in this case it isn't. They find her, and for whatever reason, they kind of start going back, and it's that recapturing of innocence at that point. Is these people, I mean, you got the two bikers, you got the nice guy who goes around in the van, and they're there, and it is kind of that recapturing of innocence, and those few moments, that line between adult and child is lost, and they're all there just playing these games. And I'll admit, I've been naked in a field before now. You know, it's one of those things.
Have you been Mr. Octopus, though?
Well, I have no hair. I mean, yeah, read into this what you will.
Yeah, because the second half is entirely like, let's just play a load of games to cheer the kid up, and it's just very, very delightful.
Yeah, they've got no money, they're down on the luck, but they actually find this moment of happiness, these little ray of sunshine's kind of through. Because I agree with what you were saying earlier, Rob, that there is kind of like a heavy cloud of melancholy over this film. But whereas usually that would kind of make it sound quite dour, it isn't at all. There's these little rays of sunshine throughout. It's like, and also one of the things as well, it kind of dispels this idea that Japanese people are always polite. They're always kind of going by this kind of, no. Takeshi Kitano, he's getting, when they're at the hotel, he's kind of accused of, you're ripping me off. I can't believe you've charged me this much. I've got no money now. You're going to give me a lift. And he's really laying into this guy. And that is kind of like my experience as well. It's kind of like, I haven't been to China and things like that. A lot of people, they will get into arguments with you for no reason. I mean, for instance, in China, nobody believes in queuing. You don't queue for anything. You go in there and you push. Now, bearing in mind, I was a good foot taller than everybody in that, kind of lining up. I was kind of like, excuse me. But yeah, it kind of dispels this idea that everybody's polite all the time. And people are just people. And everybody's kind of gets lost in there.
It's celebratory of life, really, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
There is these harsh moments, but it's not like dwelling on the moments. I mean, he's kind of a saintly character, Kitano, whilst also being very mean. I mean, some of the things that he does to go to that fair, that cultural festival, whether you want to work for him, and he just picks fights with literally every one of the stallholders.
But the game is also rigged.
Yes, yeah.
But and then it segues into these weird little moments where it has like Masao dreaming. I can only assume that the dreams.
It's funny, this, isn't it? Because when you describe it, it sounds like a very rote kind of arsehole with a heart of gold comedy. But there's something about Kitano's, his directorial choice and also his presence that gives it a little, just a tiny jolt of actual danger that stops it being saccharine.
Couldn't characterise it because it kind of an enigmatic nature, isn't it, really?
Yeah. And I think that, again, that's part of the joy of a good road movie, that it can mean everything and nothing. You know, it can be a profound experience that changes characters' lives forever, but it's also structured as just a bunch of stuff happening.
Yeah, and you get a picture of the comedian that he is, because there's countless scenes in this where whoever's opposite Kitano, you can see them copsing, you can see them struggling to keep away from laughing, and it's lovely when that happens, I think. And he's kept it in the edit as well. I think it adds like a sense of reality to it. There's nothing that takes me out of a movie than everybody and everything being perfect, and just keeping those little blemishes in there. I think it just makes it feel alive.
Well, because I rewatched this last night, and just kind of give you an idea. There's a moment where he has an altercation with a truck driver at a truck stop, and then later that truck driver tracks him down. And they have another altercation that's kind of shot in very long shot. It's very much in the distance. I laughed so much I woke my wife up and she came down and told me off, because I was just crying at that point, because it is just kind of that it's kind of like the polar opposite of Hana Bi, where the explosions of violence were very real and gritty. In this, it is the joke. It is the fact that these two guys are having a fight over something so not petty. I mean, he did smash his window, but it's kind of it's so. What are the chances of him tracking him down further down the road and going, "Oi, what's going on?" And it kind of plays into this absurdity, and then the explosion of violence happens, and it's funny because it's light-hearted. It is kind of taps into the, and because you're not right there in the thick of it, all you're seeing is half of the action. Is like Kitano gets thrown out and then marches back in, and then thrown out again and then marches back in, and it's kind of that repeat. It's like a Tom and Jerry cartoon at that point, and it is fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's one way in which these films are very complementary, in that when there is humour in Hana Bi, it comes through dialogue and performance, but this really showcases what a sense of visual comedy Kitano is, and how Kitano is very witty as a visual stylist as well as just being a comedian. There is, as Ben says, a lot of that like slapstick at a distance. There's a lot of people going off screen and then something like destructive happening off screen, and a lot of very simple classical jokes that work purely because of how he frames and captures them.
Yeah, and part of that is he's an expert at the jump cut, especially in this, just cutting from one thing and then instantly it's something else, and it's like, he's very, very clever with that, I think.
Yeah.
Little mention we got to do, Ben mentioned it earlier, the scene at the bus stop, the guy who turns up, what was he wearing again? It's the guy who says he's a security guard at the piano factory and all of this stuff.
But he's not.
That's the other beat. That's Beat Kiyoshi.
Yes. Yeah.
Ah. Right.
Yeah.
Actually, I was going to say with the two beats, there's some great clips on YouTube. Go and watch them, where it does come across very Morecambe and Wise kind of thing. Right. And there is a duality there to it. But it's funny, and this is it. And because he's known for that to Japanese audiences, he was that well established as a comedian that when he did things like Boiling Point and Sonatine and things like that was such a cultural shock that it was like, oh, hang on, he has got many strings to his bow. Whereas over here, that's all we knew him for. Takeshi's Castle hadn't broadcast at that point over here. We weren't aware of his comedy. You know, we weren't getting shows like Team Gaki and things like that, which are very funny slapstick shows. I mean, any time that you got six men whacking each other over the backside with a rubber truncheon just because they got a question wrong. And this is it. It is funny. It kind of goes down to the space level. This is why Mr. Bean works internationally. This is why Benny Hill worked internationally, because it taps into that guttural kind of humor that we all have. At the end of the day, somebody getting smacked in the face with a frying pan is funny.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, that's why the sort of micro-budget horror movie by Paul Bartel is so very, very funny. Eating Raoul.
Yeah.
God, I haven't seen that for years, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Lots of death by frying pan in that, and it's very funny. So any closing thoughts on Kikujiro? I mean, let's just... I've got to say this now. Anything bad about these two movies, because it has been very, very positive. So, a dual-pronged question there.
I think that there were times when I was worried rewatching Hana Bi that it was going to hit me a bit like, and I know you're with me on this, Rob, a bit like how Jean-Pierre Melville's films always do, where I sort of think, well, if you don't care about this plot, why don't I? But it stays on the right side of laconic, I think.
Yes.
Kikujiro, I don't know. I'm almost, if you pushed me, I would say maybe lose 10 minutes, but I don't know what 10 minutes I would cut out of it.
And that's it, isn't it? Yeah, you could argue there are moments where it is absolutely feels like it's grinding to a halt. But it's actually those moments as well that they can be, you can revel in. You can kind of sit there and go and have that awkward silence, having that very British awkward humour, kind of like,
yeah.
Okay, yeah. Why is it funny that they're sitting in a boat? Because it just is. Because it's just it's kind of, it makes no sense. Like the dream. I mean, okay, you could argue you could take the dreams out of it. But but those again, they're kind of, depending on how you look at them, they're the child interpreting his day, these people and things like that. So it kind of taps in a bit more because we don't know much about the child beyond that he doesn't see his mother anymore and nothing about his dad or anything like that. So it's I can see what you're saying about losing 10-15 minutes out of it, but again, there's an argument for keeping everything in. I honestly, for myself, this is the better film of the two. Ooh, somebody's going to get into a fight with me over that one, but it is because this one had it was like with Hana Bi, he was trying to get to Kikujiro's point, and he had to go through that to get to there. And this is why these two films complement each other. It kind of feels like he's trying to say something, but he doesn't know quite how to put it with Hana Bi, but he gets it so perfectly with Kikujiro. And it's, and it's so, when you know the history about the name, about his father, about what he went through, and how much of that would have come out, because how much do I go into? I'm going to get a bit dour now, and I'm sorry. Having come from sort of like not too dissimilar a background, you can understand, because when that person would show up, he could either be a monster or he could be your best friend in all the world, giving you all the attention, showering you in gifts, and it would be wonderful. And that's kind of, and it's kind of that duality in him kind of exercising that demon within him, and having gone through what he'd gone like 5 years earlier. So it kind of takes it on a personal level that Hana Bi doesn't. But yeah, they're both beautiful films. I love them both. I think he's great. He's one of the great masters of cinema right now. Well, okay, over the last 30 years. I say right now. I'm of an age where the other day could have been anywhere over the last 5 years. Nobody knows.
He hasn't done anything since 2017, so I think it's fair to say he's as good as retired. I mean, he is 75.
He was a Ghost in the Shell, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That was a payday. Come on, let's face it. That was a Michael Caine doing Jaws: The Revenge. That was
Yeah, I think when you're one of the sort of 5 or 6 Asian actors that Hollywood studios have heard of, there'll be a fair few roles like that.
So, what are your feelings on the director? What are your feelings on Takeshi Kitano?
It's one of those, you can really see a growth within him as his career moves on. He was, for a while there, the face of Japanese cinema. He was the name on everybody's lip, especially when Hong Kong was kind of taken over that region. You kind of get these movements like South Korea did it. Well, you could argue he still is at the moment, from sort of like early 2000s to now. A lot of the other cinemas kind of East Asia kind of took a back seat, but for a while there, he was the name on everybody's lips. Thanks to Battle Royale, thanks to Hana Bi, because. But to get that kind of status is so rare and so internationally known that he still went off and made an English language film with Brother in the before Battle Royale even came out. When was Brother? Well, was it 99? I mean, don't get me wrong.
It was 99, wasn't it?
Yeah, I can't remember what year it was. I mean, I'm not going to say Brother
got a lot
is a great
in that
movie,
few years.
It's not. Yeah, there you go. So it was kind of like, so he kind of went from that to working with Kenji Fukasaku for Battle Royale. Right away,
2000 he did that.
What a legacy. You look at his films and he hasn't got, despite not liking some of them, he hasn't got a bad film in there at all.
Is there any gaps left there, Graham?
It's funny because I said that I found Kitano pretty enigmatic when I started off, and after watching these two films, in many ways even more so. But it's a fascinating mystery. Everything I watch from him seems to have at least one element where I think, didn't know that would be his sort of thing. I didn't know that he'd be able to do that. And from what I've seen of the films I haven't watched, it looks like that basically keeps going, that there isn't a comfortable niche that he settles into. And that's great. He never gets lazy, you know?
It's a curious career he's had. I mean, I agree with everything you both said, but he hit a very, very big wall when he directed Zatoichi, because after that, people talk about sort of the great falls from success with your John Carpenters, with your Dario Argentos. I think Takeshi Kitano needs to be in that conversation, because before, pre-2003, he is basically untouchable. He's one of the best directors in the world. After that...
Right. I haven't seen any of the post-Zatoichi stuff, so I cannot comment on that.
Because he had a brief upswing with his outrage movies, but I don't think they capture him at his brilliant best, because he had the Takashis, Glory to the Filmmaker, Achilles and the Tortoise, Ryuzu and the Henchman. These are all things which just flat. But before that, his mix of emotions, his deadpan nature, his ability to get comedy and extreme violence so naturally with each other, he was just untouchable. But he needs to be in the conversation with careers that sort of fall off a cliff towards the end, past his golden era.
I think we're going to fight, but okay. All right, okay.
It's negative, but I think...
You're allowed your opinion. Everybody's allowed to be wrong once.
I mean, it's... Oh, are you saying that Takashi's is a good movie?
I'm saying it gets much maligned. Is it great? No. Is it kind of good? But it's like, I mean, a good comparison to this one is Choi Hark. Now, Choi Hark for a while there was completely lost in the wilderness after doing, kind of reinvigorating Hong Kong cinema, kind of brought Tony Ching to do a Chinese ghost story, kind of all those films. He was like one of the definitive Hong Kong directors, and then it fell off a cliff hard. I mean, for as much as people try and defend The Seven Swords, it's not a good movie. And then he did Missing and things like that, and then later he went on to do Detective D, a very heavily effects laden film, which is East Asian cinema and special effects don't really matter, especially if you've seen any modern Chinese CCP approved films as well. And it's so like, it's kind of like that peaks and flows. And I think, yes, okay, we're looking at these films, but I think if something like Takeshi's or Outrage or anything like that had been done by a different director, I don't think we'd be judging it on the same scale. And we're only judging it on that scale because of the greatness he's actually achieved.
Why do you want to hunt? Because you all think that I can't. I saw a sign in the sky. I'm ready. Maui Nita.
So that brings us to the back end of the show. Things that you've been watching by directors other than Takeshi Kitano.
Well, yeah, I've watched a film recently that I hadn't seen from a director that we had covered before, and that I know that, Rob, you were quite fond of when you covered him. Alejandro Jodorowsky.
Love-hate relationship, but yes.
I think maybe if you'd seen the film that I saw, and I will say first that I enjoyed it, but I think if you had seen it, that pendulum might have swung back to hate. Yes. I watched Fando and Liz, his first film from 1968, which is based on... it's not quite based on a Fernando Arrabal play. It's based on Jodorowsky's memories of what a Fernando Arrabal play was like, which is, first of all, great. More people should make adaptations like that. I think over time, you just remember the good bits of something and the rest becomes your own personal take on it, which is really interesting. I think what Jodorowsky seems to have remembered from Arabal's play, there's a lot of desert, a lot of mud, a lot of weird pervy shit. In fact, I'd be genuinely surprised if there was a play at all. This just sounds like what Jodorowsky writes anyway.
Yeah.
I was going to say, this sounds like Santa Sangre, to be honest.
Yeah. You can definitely see scenes of what would come later in this. He has a fascination that I occasionally share too with performance for performance's sake. There's scenes in this that feel like they're trying to interpret, particularly Liz's trauma of having been the victim of abuse, feels like it's being interpreted through some sort of weird physical theatre or interpretive dance, which is honestly a weirdly effective way to do it, because you feel the terror that she feels. It's like you're watching and you think, well, this appears to be going very far off the rails very quickly, and although there's no kind of visually graphic content in it, there's a sense that nothing is quite safe here, nothing is going to proceed in a normal movie fashion, which of course is so often the case with Jodorowsky. I found it really compelling. The plot, in as much as you can say there's a plot, is that the titular two drifters are trying to find a mythic land which is hailed as the last free place, and as they journey, and this is a motif that he repeats in El Topo and the Holy Mountain, as they journey, they come to realise that the landscape they're looking for is internal. It's a psychological state rather than a physical state. And all of those wonderful landscapes, all of those sort of big, like, in this one, it's less spaghetti western than some of his other films. I think it's a more fantasy landscape of canyons and mountains and big sort of German romantic stuff, really becomes a visual analogue for...
So how did you get from there to pleasuring giant robotic vaginas in Holy Mountain? He has a career, doesn't he?
Surprisingly easy, if we're honest. Let's not pretend that Fando and Liz is the sort of film where you'd be surprised to see a big robot vagina.
He's an odd man. Anything else?
From me?
Yes.
I suppose in terms of accidental surrealism, for pop screen, this will be something that people can go back and check once this is released. But for pop screen, I recently reviewed Bula Quo.
Why did you do that to yourself? Come on.
You're familiar with this, I take it.
Yes. Status Quo's one effort.
Yes. No, not just their one film effort, the one time they've put in some effort. It's interesting because it's the sort of film that a lot of 60s rock groups ended up making, but they tended to make these sort of chase caper comedy films back when they were the hot young thing, and some film producers thought, we can just dust off an old caper movie script and stick this band into it. That'll rip their fans off nicely. Status Quo did this when they were in their 70s, which it means the fight scenes are not exactly up to a sort of the standard we've been seeing in something like Hana Bi. They are singularly unconvincing, and it has a weirdly inappropriate darkness to it. Like, the MacGuffin in it is evidence of an organ trafficking ring, and you just think, I'm not ready to laugh yet. And then you see some of the comedy routines and you think, I'm definitely not ready to laugh yet. But yeah, absolutely bizarre shit. There's a bit where Rick Parfitt and Francis Rossi go scuba diving and nearly get attacked by a shark that is very definitely in the same place as they are and isn't stock footage at all. And then they just get out onto the nearest Fijian beach and start singing a song, and you think, I mean, tonal whiplash doesn't even cover it. This is I underwent a tonal flogging. I underwent the tonal equivalent of that bit where in The Proposition where the guy gets 40 lashes. It was absolutely insane.
With Quo songs as well. I was going to say, because this is one of the last things Rick Parfitt did as well before he passed away, wasn't it?
I'd forgotten, before I started researching this, I'd forgotten that he was another 2016 casualty.
I don't feel so bad for introducing you to Guitar Zero. What was it called?
Oh, Wild Zero's good, man. I won't stand for your Wild Zero slander.
I mean, I'm a Guitar Wolf fan, so but I know it's not a great movie. Ben, have you been catching any?
Technology in the modern world not understanding. I don't know if either of you saw The Medium from a couple of years back. Really good. Talk about tonal shifts. But yeah, very similar kind of. There's a lot of comparison to that, not quite as strong as that, but certainly well worth a watch. That's available on Netflix. I've thrown in a couple of Nunsploitation movies, A.K.A. and the Sinful Nuns of St. Valentine. No reason, just because I could. One thing I will say, A.K.A. is a really interesting film. That one is kind of like if Hammer had given Lucio Fulci the money to remake The Devils. It's absolutely bonkers.
There's a dividing line there. It's about hysteria, but if you don't like movies about hysteria, it'll piss you off a little bit because characters just screaming all the time kind of wound my gears up a bit.
I did like A.K.A. I think, it is completely balmy, but I think it works.
It is. There's lots of great stuff, but if you don't like characters screaming all the time, you just shut up.
Whereas on the flip side of that, The Sinful Nuns of St. Valentine doesn't work for me at all. It didn't really go anywhere. It didn't really know what he wanted to say. It was kind of like, okay, well, we're going to throw in this Romeo and Juliet story just so we have some story. But then you didn't feel anything for the nuns because everybody was kind of like complicit to what was going on. And he was like, yeah, whatever, don't care.
And where's that one from?
That one was actually on Mubi of all places.
Mubi's a weird place.
Honestly.
They've got the rights to Benedetta, so they did do a little mini series of Nunsploitation movies recently.
It must have been that actually kicked it off as well. It kind of like made me go, you know what, Nunsploitation. I haven't seen Flavia the Heretic or Killer Nun for a while. I know what I'm going to do.
There is one that I do want to see. I can't remember the name. It's a Japanese one.
Holy Beast of the... yes, I know which one you mean, I think.
Yeah, it's got a great poster. I can't remember the name because it has it goes by two different names. But yes, that is the one I'm on about. It starts with Holy Beast of something. I can't remember the full title.
It's never been a genre I've been that attracted to, but I will probably end up seeing Within Convent Walls one day just because I'm a Walerian Borchik completist.
I'm really...
School of the Holy Beast.
Yeah, I would say I'm really sorry for introducing you to Walerian Borchik, but it seems like you just found...
I'm having fun, man.
There we go, School of the Holy Beast.
Yes, that's it.
Because I've got a tool that tells me everything in the world ever. It's great.
I introduced you to some movie-ass movies there, Graham. I really did.
Absolutely.
There is one more that I just briefly want to bring up, and only because it's really interesting. It's one that I kind of found online. Let's put it that way. It's called When Michael Calls. It's a made-for-TV movie from 1972 that has Michael Douglas in it. It's like one of his first acts. It's right before he did The Streets of San Francisco. Now, this is a really odd film because for a made-for-TV movie, you'd think, it's going to be a bit like wishy-washy. It was made by Fox back in the early 70s. This is really good. Talk about a film that needs to be remade. This is it, and it would still work. It's about it's a cousin who died years earlier. He then starts phoning his auntie just late at night, kind of randomly over the phone, saying, and he kind of calls her names that only she would know. And it's kind of like, well, how is this happening? He's died. He's been dead for 15 years. Why is he suddenly calling now? And it really works. It kind of really taps into a fear. And it kept me guessing. And this is one of the things. It kept me guessing right until the end. And I was sort of like, I mean, yeah, all right. I kind of figured out who it was, but it was kind of, I wasn't 100% set on where it was going. So it was this really interesting mystery. And that was When Michael Calls. That's from 1972, and you can find it on YouTube and Plex and places like that. So it's really, really good. It's a really good made-for-TV movie that needs a remake now.
I've got two. Both contemporary movies. The first one is from Andrew Gaynard, All My Friends Hate Me. British movie. Lead role, the titular role is played by Tom Staunton. I'm not great with English.
Oh, this is the title of a film. Right, okay.
Yeah, All My Friends. Yeah. I see what he's doing there.
Sorry, mate. I couldn't.
This is a curious movie because essentially it's about a guy who's fairly modernish in his sensibilities, works for charity, does this and that, but he's had an invite from some friends that he used to have at university for his birthday, to go and have a birthday party with them. And there are sort of two of them, the men are, one's a very, very stereotypical tough, posh person for international listeners. And the other one is 2, and it's just sort of a conflict of interests there, and little things happen, there's little tells that maybe there's something else going on. Tom Staunton, who plays a character called Pete, gets very, very paranoid. It's based on cringe humor, I should say, or awkward humour, and some people like that. I'm not sure where I stand, honestly.
There's some cringe stuff that I like too much to dismiss it as a genre, but it can be a bit of a crutch, I think.
Yeah. I mean, it's got some fun ideas. The way it seeds sort of doubt throughout is particularly interesting, I think. I think the problem is it's one of these movies. If any chance to whip out my circumcision joke, certain movies need the end snipping off, and
yes,
and this is one of them, because there's a point where it explains what happened, explains the neuroses that he's going through, and it just sort of, I don't know how to word it, but it kind of derails it a little bit. I mean, there was another great movie from about coming on 10 years ago now, called Faults, and with Mary Elizabeth Winstead, about deprogramming people for cults. Great movie. One scene at the end ruins the whole thing. Just certain movies need the end snipping off. I could word it another way, but I'm not gonna. It doesn't make sense what I'm getting at. It has like an intent, it has a point, it has a purpose, and then it has that one final scene which just makes it all pointless. It undermines everything that came before.
Like Brazil?
That's what I'm getting at more so. I haven't seen Brazil in a long time, so I don't know whether I should be insulted by that or not.
No, I was going to say, talk about an ending that kind of, the last half hour of that film is kind of pointless. Spoiler warning.
Disagree.
But there is an argument there to say that is happening, that the basic for the last half hour of that film, the whole him escaping and things like that, is completely thrown out the window because of that one turn. It's a brilliant turn, don't get me wrong. But anything that had happened, it didn't matter because it wasn't real. Also, I'm totally spoiling this.
These movies aren't on Brazil's level at all.
No, I'm just using that as an example of a film that switches on its dime, takes the rest, like last 20 minutes or whatever, out of context and dumps it. But it doesn't. In that case, it doesn't matter because it does it so well.
Yeah, I mean, I still stand by these. It's just one scene too long, maybe. And the other one is, this dates this episode quite a lot, I think. It's the hot new movie at the moment, Prey by Dan Trachtenberg, which is the latest addition to the Predator universe.
You could have had so much fun with that setup. It'll probably date the movie by the time it comes out, but I just went out to see Billy Wilder's new one, Some Like It Hot. Pretty good. You should go and check that out.
If you've not seen this is set... it's a Predator movie set in 1719, which the Predator picks a fight with Native Americans, Comanche in particular. Great idea. I think the problem with a lot of Predator movies is the fact that they try to have a story. It's just, here is a situation, here is a hunter, a perfect hunter, and here are some men that are trying to survive it. And there we go. And it puts it in the backdrop of sort of the very early American history. We have sort of early European colonisers turn up at one point. It's a little bit jarring to have the accents, to have little turns of phrase pop up in something set at this point in history. But some people have completely written it off. Like, they speak in English, so automatically it's awful. It's shot for streaming, so automatically it's awful. I'm not going to be one of those people. I think this is a fun action movie, and the lead actor, Amber Midfunder, she's a Native American actress. She's excellent. As is Dakota Beavers, who's Bray's brother. But I don't know, there's just something about Predator movies that always feel better on paper than they do in reality. There's just, I don't know, there's just something I can't quite grasp. I don't know what it is.
Weirdly enough, because I've not seen Prey yet. I do want to see it. Obviously, it's absolutely 100% my jam. But I was having this argument with a friend the other day who's saying, at this point, a predator is toothless. They kind of present the predator as this monster, as this creature, but it's been beat by everybody.
It's absolutely not true for toothless.
You know, everything it kind of has faced has beaten it. So what's the point? Even Danny Glover beat it. You know, it's kind of like, what's the point? Does it still carry on? And that's why I'm interested in this, is have they kind of re-established that?
Oh, it's an absolute badass. It might have the biggest kill count of any Predator movie.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
But I don't know, there's just something about Predator movies, the better on pit. I don't know what it is. I really don't know.
I think it's one of those things, like, I always say Jurassic Park's the key example of this, where you look at the first film and you think, oh, there should be loads more we can do with that. And then the further you get into it, you actually realise that maybe the first one just mined the concept out so efficiently that there's not so much new you can do with it. But like I say, Prey has been getting some very good responses.
Yeah, it's fun.
And I do hope it's good, yeah.
No, I'll admit, I was worried where you were going to go with that, Rob, up to what you said about Everything Everywhere All at Once. I was really worried where that was going.
It's a fun action movie, but it lacks something to get it over the finish line, maybe.
Okay. I'll take the good action movie. I mean, and this is it. I'll probably go away and give it 5 stars because I give films like Rolling Thunder 5 stars.
No shame in
and
that.
Rolling Vengeance. Sorry, I meant Rolling Vengeance, the monster truck horror movie.
Right, yeah, I was going to say, come on, man, Rolling Thunder's got a script by Paul Schrader. There's no shame in that.
Rolling Thunder is a great movie as well, but no, Rolling Vengeance, the monster truck movie, is perfect. It's cinematic gold.
But yeah. But with Prey, A Star Is Born and Amber Midthunder, I think. She's excellent. Absolute star.
I think there's a lot of great native performers around recently. When we were doing that sort of your favourite film from such and such a year thing, and I was just reminded how great Forrest Goodluck is, and I hope he's in tons more stuff as well. Because I'd mentioned him in the context of the miseducation of Cameron Post. He has a thankless role as Leonardo DiCaprio's kid in The Revenant, but he's great in Cameron Post.
Okay, so I think that wraps us up for another episode of Directors Uncut. So, Graham, where can we find you and your stuff online?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I'm the showrunner of Pop Screen, a fortnightly podcast which looks at pop stars in the movies. I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Graham W Film if you want to come and see my hot takes on celebrity chefs, apparently. That's my brand now. And you can find me on Letterboxd at Graham Williamson.
Yeah, listen to the podcast if you want to see him punishing himself for no apparent reason. I don't know why. And Ben, where can we find yourself online?
I'm in the usual places. I'm on Twitter. I'm at Cymreig Samurai, which is Cymreig Samurai. I'm also on Letterboxd, and that's about it.
And we're back next time with part 2 of Takeshi Kitano with Violent Cop and Zatoichi. But until then, I've been your host, Rob Simpson. You can find me online on Instagram and Twitter at UncutRobcast. That's Uncut ROBcast. And please do subscribe to this show if you enjoyed it. And this has been Directors Uncut.